All right, how is that looking? Okay, great. So yes, how to activate members of your local conversation. Um, our chapter in Sacramento, California, started last February 2023. And in that time, I'm really proud to say we've made a lot of progress as far as becoming a more fleshed out group. It says 2013, sorry, it's supposed to say 2023. We have a really engaged leadership team of 6 people. We've had, regularly 30
One
to 60
second.
people.
Um, yeah, just I'm still going helping Kathleen out, and I know you know her. So what do you know about the
All right, I'll continue then. Yeah, we've been keeping attendance really strong at monthly meetings and monthly member mingles. We've been able to have regular additional events each month, whether it's a social event or a discussion event or tabling. And when we've had, city or community advocacy moments, we've usually had a few members be able to attend. And so the questions come up a couple times, how have y'all done it? Even locally here, there's no shortage of groups working on walking or biking improvements or transit. But really, our group has managed to engage people very differently. Um, and so I wanted to try to distill down what I think we're doing really well, sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose, and share that back with you all because I have totally been there with leading a group that is not, making progress and feeling really stuck. And I really empathize with how hard that is. So I'm just showing some photos of lots of, the different engagement events. And this is really just a small picture of all of that's going on our end. And I guess I want to highlight this success story. This was an event that I co-led in September, excuse me. And this felt like such a huge success because we had 15 people on the planning team, and every single person led some part of the event, whether it was making the benches, coordinating the materials, coordinating with the partner, planning the tabling, planning the trivia, um, uh, managing the social media. This felt like a real culmination of what I had been trying to work toward within our group over the last year, which was building up the leadership capacity of our members. So this has really felt like a huge milestone for us. So yeah, let's turn it over to y'all. Why are you at this workshop? Um, I have some guesses as to who felt like they needed to come today based on my own experience. Maybe you're a group that you're a team of one right now or a team of two doing everything. Maybe you put out calls to your members to get involved or to volunteer and you struggle with getting anyone to step up. Maybe people come to meetings and then you never see them again. And maybe you notice that your group membership is really stagnating or going down, and you're wondering, can we keep it up? So I'm gonna pull up the chat. If you're more comfortable writing a response in the chat, go for it. But I would love if maybe 2 people would unmute and share why are you at this workshop? What's your situation?
Hey, I'm happy to jump in. Am I unmuted? Oh, yes, thanks. Yeah, I'm muted. I'm in St. George, Utah, and our group has recently joined StrongTowns. We've been having meetings before that under the name Desert Livability, and I'm here um, because we're currently planning our year 2025, and we have a bunch of good activities planned. We want to start neighborhood walks, and I'm just really curious to learn how to keep people engaged. We have a good group right now, 10 people showing up to our meetings. I have a leadership team of 3 right now, but yeah, I want to move forward and grow the team and keep moving.
Who is that who just spoke?
That was me. My name is Judith Ronley. I'm in St. George, Utah. Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right. a second person who would like to share out?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I'll jump in. So, my name is Craig Timberlake. So I started Strong Towns Greater Ardmore, just outside of Philadelphia. We back in February or March, we held our first meeting in, I believe it was February. And we've had some really good attendance. Like we have a solid core group of like 10 to 15 people or so that are fairly actively engaged, and then we've got kind of a broader group of people who sometimes chime in on our group chat and will occasionally come to meetings, but are pretty busy otherwise. And we do have some just kind of some initiatives going on, but I'm at the point now where I'm really ready to kind of take it to the next level, and that's kind of that's where I'm at. So I'm really curious to kind of motivate people into action. I love getting together and talking every month. It's a lot of fun, and it's great to hear others' ideas, and we all kind of update each other on different aspects of what's happening locally. But I know that I and a few of our other regular members are really itching to get out there and act. And not to say that we have done some things, but yeah. So that's why I'm here.
Hey, Craig. And I was going to ask, is there someone who's really feeling like they are barely holding their group together right now? And it's a vulnerable place to share, but maybe Jody or Chris, would either of you like to say a little bit more out loud?
Yeah, I guess I just threw it in the chat, but yeah, I'm Chris. I'm in Amarillo, and it's kind of hard right now. You know, we're brand new. I jumped on this because I was real excited with a couple of other people that I thought were going to be actively engaged with me, and they're excited too. But unfortunately, if I'm not the one doing it, scheduling stuff, doing anything on social, learning, trying to go to city council meetings, finding out when when those meetings are. Right now, all the work is on me, and I don't know. I was excited, like I said, of starting this, but without. I thought I was going to have a lot more support than I've seen so far. So I guess my question, and I threw it in the chat, was, what tips do you have on, or I guess that's what I would love to learn today, is trying to get people to move from that participating but inactive to more of a, an active participation.
That was very precise. You honed in there. Jody, I cut you off. You want to be our last person?
Yeah, I can share. So I think for me, very similar to what he just said. I'm sorry for his name, but there's some interesting. Part of it is I think because I live in a more rural area. I'm in just outside of Somerset, Kentucky, so it's for the whole county, Pulaski County, Kentucky, our group. But it's more rural, and the mayor of Somerset, the biggest, he's interested. He was the one that we meet in the city council chambers. He allows us to meet there for monthly meetings. And there's other specific people who are very interested. I get a lot of positive sense from maybe a handful of people, maybe 10 people or whatever. But as far as, okay, is there going to be another leader raised up? What exactly do we do to get involved in the community? So those are my questions right now, what I'm dealing with.
Thank you everyone for sharing. For those who just joined, we are just getting settled into why are we at this workshop? What are we hoping to learn about activating local members? So I'll move to the next one. We all know this, but I think it's just good to re-ground ourselves in what are our objectives as Strong Towns Local Conversations, which is we're changing the conversation about growth and development, and we're building a movement of people. And I think we all know this, but it's really at the core of today's workshop is nothing happens without people. That is why you all are here. That is why local conversations had to exist, because we know nothing happens without people. And whether you like it or not, you have stepped into a responsibility to be part of making that movement happen in your own place. And so let's get into it. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's really more of a logical journey about why am I going to talk so much today about relationship building. This is not a workshop saying everyone has to become an extrovert. Your nature is what it is. But if you want to cultivate an effective, volunteer-based community group, it all the way ends up coming down to you have to build lots and lots and lots of relationships, and you will find a way to get really good at that, but you do have to be doing it all the time. And essentially activating members of your local conversation, it comes down to how are you building relationships with them? I don't think that's groundbreaking, but I hope what the actual practices will be a little bit. And then just to share a bit about my background, I come mostly from a campaign organizing background, through college and post-college, working a lot with young people. And I've specialized a little bit in coaching on campaigns. And I don't say this to credential drop. I say this because the skills I'm going to talk about today are ones that are taught and can be learned. And I think that's really important, when you think about the groups that are doing this really well and people who are just knocking it out of the park, many of them are trained, or have gone through trainings. I don't mean elite higher education. I mean like peer-to-peer grassroots level trainings. I have gone through years of training on how to facilitate meetings, how to build campaigns, how to build group structures. So again, I'm not saying this to one up myself. I'm saying this because these are skills that can be taught and can be learned and can be improved. And if we're serious about making the effective changes we want, we should have a culture of learning and teaching. None of these have to be inherent to your personality or how you're born. Again, you could be an introvert and still do any of these things really well. All right, so just to get the basics out of the way, just making sure we're all starting on the same page, I think these are non-negotiable things you must do if you want to have a successful local conversation. And they have already been studied and discussed. If you have been through the leaders course, you have probably listened to this episode. There's a screenshot in there of someone giving a really concise report out from the Discord. But yeah, you must be doing in-person regular meetings. Monthly has kind of been, I think, a good cadence for us, and consistent day and time. You need to have multiple group leaders, no lone wolves. And I'll talk a little bit about how you get to that point, but that is a must. It is a recipe for burnout if you do not have multiple group leaders. And I have been there fully. Other couple of things are just a way for people to contact you. Right now for Strong SacTown, we do have a website and one social media account, and that feels like plenty. But for a long time, we just had our general email address. For about 5 months, we didn't have a website or social media, and we still were able to activate around a dozen people pretty regularly. So you don't have to spend all your time on the website right now, but it definitely does help, and I'll show how it helps in a second. And then a chatting platform. Right when we started, we made the Discord. That was really key so that people could start connecting directly with each other. So wait, sorry, 1 second. Oh yeah. So let me move on to, these are the basics. Not saying that that means they're easy, but I think these are non-negotiable. You have to have this if you intend to run, a bottom-up, effective group of people who can coordinate together and eventually take responsibility together. So here's what I would also add that groups need to be doing. Have one-on-one meetings with as many members as you can. Follow up on messages and signups. I won't be able to talk about all the tech we've done to automate this, but that could be a potential future Skillshare. But you need to be following up when people reach out to you. Have a system for greeting and welcoming people at monthly meetings. Maintain a database for member tracking. And have committees or smaller working groups for projects or topics. And then do some more one-on-one meetings. All of these I'm going to go over in more detail in this presentation. All right, so I'm going to put the stuff up front here. Here are my takeaways for you all. And I'm going to ask for other people to read this so I don't just hear my voice. Dave, would you mind reading number 1 and then passing it to someone else to read out loud?
Just read it out loud and no comment, just read it.
Please.
I can read. Your role as a leader is building other leaders. Judith?
Meet almost everyone, build a people-oriented culture. Chris?
Number 3, have one-on-one meetings. Craig?
Number 4, reach out, follow up, check in over and over and over. Let's go, Danny.
5, track your members. Brian?
Be organized with engagement opportunities. Let's go Nick Harris.
All right, 7, you must and you will become a people person. And I'll just read the last one. It's all about relationships.
We're doing pretty good on time, so maybe I'll pause and hear from 2 people. Do you have any immediate reactions? Is this like, oh my God, this is what I already know, which is fine. If you're just like eager to get into it, or maybe you are really curious about one of these.
Yeah, this is Nick from Strong North Tahoe. I'll jump in here. Yeah, I mean, I think my reaction to all these is it all makes sense, but it also, I think looking at the comments, a lot of us sort of jumped in with, oh man, there's only 1 or maybe 2 of us that are doing all the legwork. And so seeing a lot of these things, I guess it starts feeling almost even more overwhelming. It's like, oh, geez, I got to also do all of this. So it's kind of like, I guess when I see this, I'm like, well, where's the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Where after, it's sort of like, how can I imagine doing all these things? And then because of it being all about relationships, doing all these pieces of activity, when do I actually start getting other people to start taking a bit more of this workload off of my shoulders?
Yes, I'll give you the answer right now. It's number 3, have one-on-one meetings. But yeah, let's just jump into it because I think you bring up a really good point, and I do totally get that you are probably a little bit overwhelmed. So take a breath. You are so important for being here and trying to learn and figure it out. Let's get into it. Oh, and I meant to say in my about me, just a very quick story. I started doing organizing and advocacy in college, and I had started a campaign, and about a year had passed, and I had really just been really struggling with it. I was running weekly meetings, and barely anyone came, and if anyone came, it was really hard to be sure I'd see them again. Basically, after about a year, I was so, burnt out and so disappointed and frustrated with myself that I decided to quit doing the monthly meetings and pause the campaign for a while. But for various reasons, people pressured me to keep it going from outside. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to try a different tack. Instead of keeping up the weekly meetings, I'm going to have like an office hours at a coffee shop. And I called it Coffee Talks. And only one person would generally come to those. I did them every week. And if no one showed up, I would, do homework. But the person who did come the first time just came every week, and we would just talk one-on-one. And then they recruited a couple people. And then they came with me to a training that I was going to. And once I graduated, they were the one who kept the campaign going. And it eventually grew to like a dozen people, which it never was that large when I was running it. And if there can be one secret sauce thing that I can say is the most important thing that you can do, it is have one-on-one meetings. And that was the first time I had one. Because like I said before, this was something I just didn't know and I had to learn it. And now I have trained and taught people around one-on-ones because it is a mainstay of any kind of community organizing, particularly labor organizing. So the answer is number 3. Let's get into it. Yeah, by one-on-one, I mean, it doesn't have to strictly be just you and the other person, but it's basically an intentional, bounded meeting. So, you know, the most basic version of that is you and another person, just one-on-one. I have had 2-on-ones before, you know, but that's what I mean, one-on-one meetings. Not in a group setting, not in the monthly meeting, not at a mingle with a bunch of other people around, not casual chit chat, an intentional one-on-one meeting. All right, so let's get into each takeaway. Takeaway number 1, your role as a leader is building other leaders. Let's be really quick with this. Just hear some responses in the chat, maybe one out loud. What do you think is meant by leadership?
Taking care of your people.
Feel free to chime in other responses in the chat, what leadership is to you. I'll keep on moving us forward because this is really just ground setting. This is a definition that I really resonate with by Marshall Gans, who is a very famous trainer and designer within labor organizing circles and teaches currently about movement organizing at Harvard. And he was a very big part of the farm workers movement in California. Leadership is accepting responsibility for enabling others to achieve shared purpose in the face of uncertainty. And so what I really like to highlight is enabling others to achieve shared purpose. Your role is thinking about how do we build up other people. You don't have to be the person with all the answers. You don't have to be the expert. You don't have to be the best talker or the best public speaker. Your role as a leader and a good leader is enabling others. I'm not going to go over this, but this is from a previous workshop I've done. And I think I just want to highlight that a lot of times people are very nervous about asking people to take on more responsibility. We tend to worry that we're going to overwhelm someone or come off as manipulative or scare people away. And maybe that doesn't resonate with you, but I guarantee somebody here has felt a version of that and felt nervous about asking someone to help. And I want to like hammer home that, you know, when people come to your group, you know, your group is a gift, is offering a gift of being a vehicle to act on their concerns. They came for a reason, right? They signed up for a reason. They showed up for a reason. And so not engaging them is really not honoring the fact that they have taken the time to show up and they're looking for a way to be engaged. They don't maybe know what that is, and they will have trouble figuring out what the right role for them is. Not everyone is very clear, like, hey, I'm really good at this. This is what I want to help with. And here are the issues I'm most passionate about. Here are the ideas I have, and here's how I can support. Your job is to help facilitate how to get them to that point and offer them specific opportunities at the right levels for them. And that is where the skill comes in. So just don't be scared of asking people to get involved. So yeah, so now we get into the next more nuts and bolts things about how are we going about building relationships. If you are in a place in your LC where you are already doing monthly meetings, great job. It's really important that you try to like meet almost everyone who comes to those. So for many months, I informally took on the role of being the greeter and the welcomer at monthly meetings. Nobody assigned it to me, but I just was, every time someone came up, I brought the clipboard up to them, said hi, asked them their names, gave them a name tag, asked them what brought them here. If they looked new, I would invite them to where to sit down. I'd say, hey, can I introduce you to these people? Or can I have you sit with these folks? Like, basically just being that welcoming presence. Once our meetings began being more than 12 people and being regularly 30, 40 people, I couldn't do that by myself anymore. So I started a welcoming committee to rotate that role among a few people. But essentially, we were retaining that thing that was really important, which is as soon as people come, have them feel welcomed and greeted, and have like a person that they can talk to and just say, yes, I heard about this. I'm in the, yes, you're in the right place. How did you get here? That's so awesome. Thank you so much for coming. You cannot underestimate how important this is. A few other tips, build an introduction and breakout times. That's really key because you want people to not just associate with you. You want them to associate with the whole group that's there. It's roots of a tree all interlacing together. You don't want to be the one trunk for everything. Having post-meeting hangouts has really also helped with that social cohesion, and just a lot of gratitude. Remember that what you're trying to do is not have everything rely upon you. You want to build the culture that everyone else subconsciously recreates. So when you thank people for coming and you have people sit with people they don't know right away and ask them to introduce each other, everyone starts to do that. 90%, 95% of people start to do that.
Can I ask super quick, the breakouts, how long are your meetings typically?
We have 1-hour meetings. We start right on time and we end on time. We usually have 1 or 2 speakers. Speakers will usually speak for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes of Q&A. And then we usually try to aim for 10 minutes of breakouts, like following the speaker, or we do a planned activity that's interactive. So we'll either just do a 10-minute breakout time where people can just talk and discuss whatever they heard from the speaker. We don't have speakers at every single meeting, but then we do try to do something facilitated, like have an activity of some kind or an article to read that we react to, something like that. Especially because, reaching out to speakers takes work and everyone here has very limited capacity. We also try to do an icebreaker in the beginning where it's just to introduce yourself to the people around you. So 5 minutes, sometimes even 2 minutes of that, but still doing it, even if it's a really short amount of time. I'm curious, does anyone here have like a system of welcoming and greeting people at their monthly meetings or at their events? And if you don't, can you say no in the chat? I just want to get a read. Okay, Judith does it. I mean, that's a system. Nice. Great. Yes, and you're setting a culture of being very welcoming here, but what is really key for me about this is that I meet almost everybody. I can recognize almost everyone's faces and names when they come in. I'm not great at names, but it kind of forces me to do that. And so when I see them again, I'll say, hey, I met you before, and it does really help. Okay, so, oops, sorry. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Have one-on-one meetings. Okay, so I want to share some stories, some success stories of how one-on-one meetings worked. And so this is story of D. We have a website sign-up form, and it automatically goes to our inbox. This is where those automations can be really helpful. And so, someone reached out. They said they're a video editor. How cool is that? We got incredibly lucky. I want to say that it was a month before I followed up. I got really busy and I just still went for it. And so I asked for a one-on-one meeting. Um, uh, I invited them to our monthly meeting and asked if we would also want to talk one-on-one to learn more about what their interest in, like, do they have ideas for video projects? And we met a week later. Then they came to both of our one-on-one events and they attended and filmed our Clean Air Day video and made a really awesome video that StrongTowns actually accepted collaborating on. And I'll share the link to that later. Here, because it's so good. Another story, this person signed up and we have an automatic email that goes out to anyone who signs up through the website. It takes a couple hours to do that with, using Zapier or Make. And so we don't have to, we were previously individually, manually emailing people who signed up, and then we automated it, which has helped a lot because we always ask this, question, what's one small thing that would make Sacramento better? And a lot of people respond and write something. And that kind of triggers me. Hey, if someone takes the time to respond, they'd be a great candidate to ask more questions or to invite to a specific upcoming event or to ask for a one-on-one. So I asked them about that. And during the course of my one-on-one meeting with this person, I asked them, what they'd done, what else kind of experience they had. And they used to help with the newsletter for a nearby group in one city over. So I said, oh, we've been meaning to make a newsletter, but we just haven't had the capacity. Do you like writing? Is that something you would like to do in this group? And she said yes. And I asked, would you be interested if I helped you set it up, like helping coordinate and pull together a newsletter? And she was like, yes. It sounds like we got really lucky, and we did. But I want to emphasize that many times no one would have asked. Many times you'd never have asked, oh, there's this thing that we've been needing to do. And it would be really helpful if we had someone to do it. You mentioned you're interested. And that opportunity would have never come up if I had not asked for the one-on-one. So again, we got very lucky, but I'm sure that this latent potential exists somewhere in your local town. And the one-on-one meetings unlocks it. It does take time, and I will speak a little bit about that in closing. But here are some nuts and bolts. There is an entire training I can give about one-on-ones, and there's lots of ways to approach it, some much more intense and serious than others. But, the basic idea here is that you reach out and specifically ask for a set time, at least 30 minutes, if not an hour. I really always end up taking an hour personally. And try to do it in person, if not a video call. And, the script is really not rocket science. You just notice something about what they said or how they signed up, something that they offered, and you build upon it. And then you ask them if you want to meet. And I will tell you that every single person I have asked to do a one-on-one meeting has scheduled one with me. Not a single person has rejected it, which is a little scary for me because sometimes I'll send like 5 emails in a row and then I'm scheduling 5 of them in the next 2 weeks. And usually I'm doing about 1 a week. Some weeks I have done more than 1. So again, you do them at your pace. Don't do 5. Don't send 5 if you don't expect to do 5 and you can't, but you can always schedule them a few weeks out. But the bottom line here being that I have had 100% success rate because people are so excited when you reach out and ask for more, for more. I don't ask for one-on-ones usually for just any random person who signs up. I will ask them if they've bitten on something, like Dee reached out saying they were interested in video editing, and M reached out, responded to the question. And yes, I know this goes back to the really helpful thing that someone said earlier about, how is this not feeling like more work? And I will say that, going back to my story, if there is something that is taking all of your time, like you are barely holding it together because you're constantly following up on city council stuff, or you're, you know, keeping up with bike advocacy things or a certain project, but really you're committed to building a local conversation, I think stopping, like, it's almost more important to stop all of that for the sake of building up your group. And that is what I had to do in my situation, is that I pretty much stopped everything and just ended up focusing on doing the one-on-one meetings until I got more capacity. For some of you, this workshop might push you to decide to make that change and say, I'm going to just focus on doing one-on-ones from here on and building up leaders. And that might be exactly the step you need to take, because if you don't have multiple leaders, you will not be able to sustain keeping up your group. And you can't rely on just, lightning striking and just a random amount of momentum coming out of nowhere. So if there's just one thing I need to stress over and over, it's do the one-on-one meetings. The one-on-one meetings is where you get people engaged and how get to happen. The full guide talks a little bit more about what you talk about in your one-on-one meeting. But really it's a lot of asking questions and listening. It's a lot of like, what brought you to Strong Towns? Why does this matter to you? What do you hope to see in the city? Is there something you already are really interested in doing in this group? What kind of community are you looking for? And you listen for those openings to offer an ask at the end, whether the ask is, will you come to the next monthly meeting? Or the ask is, hey, you mentioned wanting to talk to your local business about bike parking. Will you reach out to your business about bike parking and report out on it in our Discord? We'd really love to learn from you, or like hear how that goes. You have to leave your one-on-one meetings with some kind of ask. All right, I'm sorry I'm rushing through this, but here we're gonna keep on going. Reach out, follow up, check in over and over. Sorry, that sounds really overwhelming. But here, pop quiz. So your local conversation is signed up to table an event, and nobody raised their hands to volunteer when you asked at the last meeting. So what do you do? Do you run the event by yourself? Do you cancel it and decide that your LC can't do any tabling events right now? Do you pass around a sign-up sheet at the next meeting? Do you spam the Discord or email list asking people to sign up? Do you individually text people who have seemed engaged in the past? Yeah, drop some answers in the chat. I would do E to make sure. Sweet, got a lot of E's. Fair. B is a very real answer. Very real. So yeah, I would say, I mean, there's not really wrong answers. Probably A sounds like hard, but I have totally done that. I have totally run events by myself. But yeah, I would say these are all great options, but the key is individually texting people. The number of times I have put out a sign up form for tabling in a Discord or email list, and a week later, even after I've bumped it up multiple times, there's been no signups. I mean, that happened this year. That happened a month ago. So you know what I did? I individually texted people. And I'm just showing you these screenshots to show you that, again, it's not rocket science. Like, it's a pretty simple script. These are the exact responses I got. A lot of people responded saying I'm out of town. That happened too. But this is how I got all the people to table in that one picture in the back. There was like one where like 10 people tabled. So how do you figure out who to text? That's where tracking your members comes in. So for a long time, I started tracking members just on a Google Sheet. So we would have a paper sign-in sheet at each meeting that we'd pass around, because you'd never want to have people show up at an event and you don't walk away with their contact information. You always get the contact information somehow. Sign-in sheet is great. Paper, literally a piece of paper on a clipboard with some lines drawn on it, works just fine. So I would, look at the Google Sheet, or you look at the sign-in sheets afterward, enter the names on a Google Sheet, and just kind of notice, and tally each time they came to a meeting. And And over time, I got into kind of a sense of who was coming regularly and who was never coming back. We eventually moved over to Airtable and a more sophisticated database platform, which is not hard to use, but is a lot better than a Google Sheet. And we keep track of all their contact information in there. We keep track of their attendance. And we track kind of their status in this tier level. And someone made kind of a mention of that, like, who are those members who are interested and showing up but not really engaged. So this is the tier structure I use in our database. So people who are super highly engaged, there's people who regularly attend events and are active and volunteered once. There's people who are engaged and attended multiple meetings and participate. So tier 2 and 3 is really where I would hone in on doing the one-on-ones. I don't really ask tier 4 people to do one-on-ones, people who just attend events. Now that we're so large, but like, think about tier 2 and 3. So let's hear from you. You can sign off in the chat if anyone wants to share out loud, but do you have a database, or, how do you track your members? Google Sheet is just fine. I'm so sorry, Nick. I see your comments, and I am seeing you, and I apologize for overwhelming you. I will get to the overwhelm in a second. Many with coffee rings. Yep, that's me too. I have a pile of those. Sheets. Great. So people are tracking. That's really good. And that's really important, because when it comes down to like those opportunities where you need volunteers, and you know that the most effective thing to do is one-on-one outreach by text, having that tracking system is how you figure out who to text. And you just copy paste the same message, but you do it in that text format with a way that is more individually targeted. Danny, yes, I do. I haven't really made a mention of that here, but we do make a note of that. Yeah, Nick, if you have it in your head, again, as you get more, as you get more members, the more things are written down and in systems, the easier it is to invite people into a process. So for example, when M wanted to help with the newsletter, I had already written out our branding guidelines, our colors, our fonts, our logos, and I put it in one place, and I was able to just send that over to her, and she was able to make the newsletter just like that, because I gave her everything that she needed. So it's not something you have to do all at once, but this is how you lower the barrier to entry for people to take that step from not being involved to being involved. Okay, so I want to go to this activity time. I want everyone to take 3 minutes to write down as many members as you can remember. Maybe we'll do 2, sorry. 2 minutes. So on your phone or wherever, I'm going to start the timer now. And then the next activity will be to categorize them into tiers, and you can use this tier system on the right. So 2 minutes, go for it. roughly 2 minutes. And I'll give another minute just because I'm seeing the clock. Sorry. Are most folks dry now? Like they don't have any more people? Yeah, Jessica asked, can I count anyone who shows up even at least once? Yeah, you should, if you want to think about these tiers more after this workshop, you should rewrite your tier structure to make sense for your group. So maybe your thresholds are gonna be different than ours are. So maybe you would just have like 4 tiers and, or your threshold is like has attended one event or meeting. The bottom line here is that your tier should help you differentiate between people you want to like take the time to invest in and reach out to and the people you don't. Not because not everyone is important, but because you are one human being or there's limited time. So the tiers help to think about where are different people at and who is considered active and engaged, who is there to be leveled up. That is the purpose of the data, is for you to be better able to organize them and engage them. You can also think of other purposes like, designating membership structure, paid levels, doing little award ceremonies. Like there's lots of reasons to do this, but the reason I'm saying to do this is because it has helped me so much with figuring out who do I reach out to for one-on-ones? Who do I reach out to when I need volunteers for an event? Who's likely to say yes if I ask them to table, which can be a little intimidating, for people who are not used to the org. Okay, so takeaway 6, be organized with engagement opportunities. This is where it's really great having those folks who are good with, good with organizing information. I'm gonna drop the example here. Sorry. But basically telling people get involved is, we're seeing that all the time right now, right? Like since the election, people are saying get involved, but everyone's wondering like, what does it mean to get involved? Even within your local conversation, they're like, I don't know what getting involved means. And most of the time, most people are not egomaniacs. Most people are extremely humble and don't think that they don't know what they have to contribute, and they're worried about coming off like they know everything if they say exactly what they want to contribute. Like they want to know what you think they should do. And just continuing to say, do anything is possible is not very helpful. It just is like it hits a wall for people, right? So using things like specific sign up forms where you have options for how can people get involved, like what specifically you need. If you have a tabling event, having a spreadsheet where you actually write out the shifts and ask people to take 1 or 2 shifts, that is a lot easier than saying, hey, can you help out at the event on Saturday? I'm very, very proud of our parking day planning spreadsheet because I think that helped a lot with getting 15 people to take on roles, because we wrote out every single role that was needed. And in the planning call, I literally had people take 2 minutes to themselves to read through everything and sign up for the roles they wanted. And then they took on their role. So of course, be open-ended, don't be dictatorial. Other people will have good ideas that you haven't thought of, but just saying, get involved, whatever you want to do is great. Just think of the next step in your community. See something and do something is a really hard sell for a lot of people. So actually saying, hey, these are the things we need right now. Listening in your one-on-one to what they're saying and offering something tailored to that, and really highlighting this is something we really need. Saying you need them is really important. And that's my number one learning from working with young people, is young people don't want to hear about how you're going to help them. Young people want to hear about how you need them. They want to feel important. And I think that's true for a lot of us. Okay, I'm so sorry we're at the end of time. I just want to share this story because it just shows how this all comes back to relationships. So, on a random Instagram post, someone commented intersection murals. I responded. I said, "What's an intersection near you?" And they said one, and then we were talking back and forth in the replies, and then we messaged, and I said, should we meet up? You seem really engaged in what you want to do in Oak Park. We met up a couple weeks later. And then I invited them to the city council final budget hearing based on what we talked about in our one-on-ones. They had never done advocacy before, but I was like, hey, we're going to do a power hour. We're going to comment. Would you be interested? You don't have to make a comment. But they did. And they actually made it on the news. And then I invited them to a coalition meeting, and they were so grateful to be invited to that and that I thought of them. And then they were so excited about making benches. They made these benches. I totally was expecting them to flake, and they completely followed through. And then just recently at our last meeting, they recruited 2 new members. I know I'm asking a lot of you all, but I want to say that this is how it happens. Now I have somebody who regularly tables, regularly volunteers, regularly recruits people. And it's because I direct messaged them from a comment that they made. And I just kept maintaining a relationship with them over messages. Sorry if this is kind of creepy, but this is just what it is. This is how every person who has gotten engaged in our group and led something, it's because I or someone on our leadership team did a one-on-one with them. That is the reason they got involved. Okay. So I want as homework for you all, if you feel moved by any of this, of course I can't tell you what to do really, but write down a list of 10 people, start with the tier list that you made earlier and make a goal of how many one-on-one meetings you'd like to do in the next 4 weeks. Oh, sorry, before the end of the year. I meant to say that. And yeah, if I made a forum post, I don't know, John, is there a way that we can report back out to each other
Yep.
and follow
I
up
think
from
it's a
this?
great idea.
Okay, great. Q&A. And I just really was proud of my meme. So I want to share it. I'm so sorry to go till the end, but we do have a little bit of time for questions.
I have a couple questions that I wrote down from people that people put in the chat. And so let me just and then if other folks have ones that they want to quickly get to, go ahead and put those in the chat. Let's see. We have okay. Danny asked she just asked where do you meet?
We used to meet at a cafe. And then once we outgrew that space, we asked our members, can you help us find another space? And one of them had a family friend who worked at this real estate office. That's the one at the bottom. And they were really interested in what we did. So again, ask for help. Ask for help. Tell people what you need. But yeah, for a long time, we just met at this cafe.
That's great. And Brian's in Sheboygan. He says, we're starting to move beyond a book club and critical mass activities. I'm wondering how other groups structure their meetings. Are all members invited to all meetings, or do you have a small group meeting with just the leaders?
Yes, we do the monthly meetings are completely open. They're publicly advertised. Then the leadership team meets, sorry, I'm looking for the slide. The leadership team meets also once a month separately to plan the monthly meeting and to just go over a bunch of other stuff, everything else. And we have a leadership team Discord chat.
Okay. That's great. Let's see. Anybody want to ask the one final question? We have 1 minute left. You can unmute and ask. No, that's okay too.
I'll just
ahead,
give
Brian.
I just
Greg, yeah.
sorry, yeah, just a quick tip. I found several members who are now kind of like either level 2 or a couple of people who are actually I think I'm going to ask them to be part of the leadership team by going to public meetings and kind of seeing who spoke out on the topics that we're looking to be active in, and then just approaching them saying, hey, I see you're very interested in like pedestrian safety. You know, we have a group. Why don't you come to a meeting? And that's worked out really well. So just want to put that out there.
Perfection.
Yeah, that's great, Greg. This is Alyssa was the one who came up with the idea for the Skillshare office hours. It's funny to me that like it took this long to sort of make this one happen when it was Alyssa's idea in the first place. And so Alyssa, thank you so much. I found this incredibly inspiring. I was literally slacking with Norm as you were giving your presentation, like, here's, we need to do this, like, we need to do this, we need to do this. Like, I learned so much. And so thank you very much for this. I will help distribute your slide deck, and we'll get this posted to the YouTube playlist. But wow, Alyssa, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here. Great conversation. This was, I don't know, this was awesome. I want this to be the model for any Skillshares that I do in the future because it was so good.